Hey ghosts, welcome to this astral plane. Please keep your seatbelts on during takeoff and landing. In my quest to discover more about out-of-body experiences and such things, I've been recommended to try the Silva Method. And so I managed to get the Kindle version of the Silva Mind Control Method for Getting Help from the Other Side by Jose Silva and Robert B. Stone. This is part 1 where I'll learn what it is and what the steps are, and then I'll prepare to do them. And in part 2, I will show you how it went and then draw my conclusion on whether it works or not. And as always, I promise I am being open-minded. The Silva Method was founded by Jose Silva. In the About the Authors section, it says that Silva started his business career at the tender age of 6. I think this is meant to make Silva seem like he's extremely committed to success. But it just makes me despair for the type of person that brags about a 6-year-old's labour. He doesn't actually clarify what he did at 6 years old. Yearn for the mines? The other author, Robert B. Stone, is described as an expert in the achievement of human potential. Human potential is the belief that we all have untapped skills within us. And apparently this guy's tapped them. So what kind of skills does he have? It doesn't actually say. Maybe his words just appeared in the book and his name on the spine and he didn't actually do anything. I am largely going to refer to Silva as the author of this book because it's him that the method is named after, and the entire book is kind of from a singular point of view. In his words, the Silva Method helps us to use our natural contact with the other side effectively to make this a better world in which to live. And the goal of the other side is creation. He's talking about creating a ship, an airliner, a locomotive, fashions, furniture, homes, computers, energy sources, and industries. Some of us were capitalists at 6 years old and it shows. So he opens the book by telling us what the Silva Method actually is. It is sitting on a comfortable chair, closing your eyes, taking 3 deep breaths, and slowing your brainwaves in order to activate the right hemisphere of your brain. And he says that you will know how to slow your brainwaves by the end of the book. So Silva very much believes that the right side of your brain is creative, and this is how we get in touch with the other side of life, the non-physical. But this idea of the left side of your brain being logical and the right side of your brain being creative has largely been debunked. And the oversimplification of brain areas and function has been used in the past to segregate people based on race and gender and class. So not cool, but in Silva's defense, I think this was written before a lot of this became debunked, and I need to follow these steps in order to achieve the Silva Method, so I am just going to go along with what he says. But I'd like it to be known that I don't agree in the left and right brain stuff. My favourite parts of the book are the anecdotal evidence for the Silva Method working. He takes us into these little vignettes where people are using the Silva Method and calling upon the other side, the same way you would call an ambulance or the fire brigade. Early in the book, he tells us about a boat that was sailing from Honolulu to California and develops a leak. And the Coast Guard can't reach it before dark, so they postpone any help until the morning. So the mother of one of the men on the boat immediately called her local Silva Method help centre. Just had the number lying around, I suppose. So then a group of Silva Method practitioners all practiced together, and sure enough, the boat made it to California safely. He says, in some strange way, the boat's leak had fixed itself. Now, he's on to me because he immediately challenges the idea of a coincidence, but also vaguely tells us that not all miracles are the work of the other side. I feel like I could dig into this and unravel the concept, but I am trying to be open-minded, so I take it face value. He also expresses that the method is dynamic, not passive. When we employ the Silva Method, we control our mind. The phrase mind control provides a very good description of what we do. I have never thought of the term mind control as controlling my own mind. It always makes me think that you're attempting to control someone else's mind. He says that if all government leaders of all nations were trained in this method, they would all be able to predict each other's plans and intentions. Surprise would be impossible, and truth would prevail. You may say I'm a dreamer. So let's get into the method. By relaxing the body, you enable the mind to relax. By relaxing the mind, you slow the brainwave frequency. When you slow the brainwave to about half the awakened rate, You raise the right brain's level of activity so that it is about as active as the left brain. When both halves of the brain are active, the mind can be programmed consciously and purposefully, just like a computer. I have never personally programmed a computer. I hope it's easy. He has this graph that breaks down the brain frequencies and when they're used, and it's a lot. There's all sorts of different areas in the consciousness and brain rhythm chart. Except down in the corner here, this is a mystery zone. Maybe death? He says that you use words and or picturing mentally to program your mind. As someone who lives their life viewing visual concepts constantly through synesthesia, I'm actually beginning to wonder if I live on the other side and I might need brain training to come back into reality. But I have heard other people talking about this kind of thing, not just through the Silva Method. Again, the big umbrella of manifesting uses this technique and it's very popular at the moment. Silva does talk about the phenomenon behind this type of stuff, which I've talked about before. He doesn't call it confirmation bias, but he does describe confirmation bias. As you relax your body, still your mind, and mentally picture the changes you want in life, when these improvements arrive, you experience a subtle change in your attitude. Your expectation and belief increase, which makes you happy to seek further improvement. So Silva says that part of the process is receiving answers in the form of dreams. Dreams that you remember and dreams that you can interpret for problem solving. Silva says that he used some numbers he found in a dream to buy a lottery ticket and won $10,000. So, whilst I was researching the Silva Method, I started paying a lot of attention to my dreams. I had a dream that I had a girlfriend and I lost my cat in an elevator. I had a dream that I was battling an alligator with Tarantino, and the alligator was wearing a t-shirt and a backwards cap. I'm not sure what problems are being solved in my dreams, and I definitely didn't see any numbers. So he goes on to describe that the process is largely controlled daydreaming, and that will become your key to heaven. And there are specific instructions for 20 days that you have to do morning, lunchtime, and evening. In the morning, once you wake up, you are to prop your pillows up and relax. You close your eyes and turn them slightly upward, and honestly, it's so difficult to not just fall back asleep at this point. How anyone is getting anywhere with the Silva Method and not just sleeping constantly, I don't know. If you're able to do this, please tell me how. You count backwards from 100 to 1. Then when you reach 1, you say to yourself mentally, each time I relax this way, I go deeper, faster. Then you count from 1 to 5, but on the count of 3, you say, when I open my eyes at the count of 5, I will be wide awake feeling great. Then at the count of 5, you open your eyes and you say, I am wide awake feeling great. This is your first controlled visit to the alpha level. So then at noon, you daydream. You get into a relaxed position again where you're slightly reclined, close your eyes, turn them upwards, and count from 100 to 1 again. He then gives you a prompt to visualize, and they are based on things that you will have seen before, so you're just imagining something that you've already seen. Then when you're finished, you count to 5 again and you do your mantra. If you have aphantasia, you are out of the Silva Method, I'm afraid. Aphantasia is a condition almost opposite to synesthesia where you can't imagine. One of my closest and longest serving friend, is that the right term? That feels like I'm a jail sentence. I wanted to say oldest friend, but then that made that sound like she was like in her 90s or something. The friend that I've had since childhood has aphantasia. Her and I are a weird opposites attract kind of coupling. Then at night, you are to practice relaxation and imagining together. You sit in an uncomfortable chair. Just kidding. It's a comfortable chair, of course it is. Why would people even own an uncomfortable chair? And you concentrate on each part of the body, relaxing each part one by one. Then you work with the visualization prompt from noon, but you interact with it, so you maybe make it disappear or you have a conversation. The days are very structured for you, and I think that's a good thing. I think that it's very clear what you have to do in order to use the method. But I did extract the instructions from the book and put them into a cheat sheet for myself, because otherwise I would never be able to remember what to do. And because it's the Kindle edition, it's not so easy as sticking a marker in the book and going back to that page. So if you'd like to see this cheat sheet, then I'll share it in the comments. Once you get through the first 5 days, which get you acquainted with accessing the other side, you move on to improving contact with the other side. The morning routine stays largely the same, except you count from 50 to 1 instead of 100 to 1. Your mantras slightly change, and at lunchtime, you continue to imagine things to develop your clairvoyance. And Silva does get a bit pissy about the definition of clairvoyance. It feels like he really wanted to shun someone for not believing.
Shun the non-believer! Shun!
So by this point, he's given us 10 days of instructions, which is halfway through the course of the Silva Method. And this is where he reveals that students of the Silva Method are encouraged to imagine a counsellor to help them solve problems whilst in the creative side. This video is sponsored by Astral Help. Think yourself therapized. So around day 10, you think a counsellor into existence in your mind, and then you can call upon them anytime you're in the creative space. They can be anyone that you want them to be, and Silva has some recommendations. Einstein, Buddha, Christopher Columbus. Is he a figure that people consider calming? I reckon a lot of the world doesn't. I'm torn between making my counsellor Brené Brown, a researcher and storyteller who spent 2 decades studying courage, vulnerability, shame and empathy, or Kárya, the Eurovision entry that brought the song Cha 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 into the world. I imagine anytime I asked for advice, he'd say, "It's crazy, it's party."
It's crazy, it's party.
The thing is, you don't use your counsellor yet, it's just something that you're setting up for the future. In days 11 to 15, you in fact do a lot of dream work and instruct your body to let go of negative memories. He talks about the body storing memories not just in the mind, but also in the muscles. So what he instructs you to do is visit a different set of body parts each night and instruct them to let go. The body parts you visit is an exhaustive list. It starts with like legs and arms and all that, but then you have to visit your intestine and your kidneys and your reproductive area. To be fair, as a Scot with a high alcohol tolerance, my liver is owed an apology. I might send Kárya in to make it feel better. After 2 nights of clearing the body, you then spend 2 nights clearing the mind of negative memories. This involves forgiving everyone from your past and present. So over 2 nights, you cycle through all your family members and specific people from your life that represent everyone in your life in order to forgive them. And then you can forgive yourself. He basically says, if you can't love yourself, how in the hell are you gonna love somebody else? And I am amening up in here. So before revealing the agenda for the final 5 days, he delves into clairvoyance and intuition. He says that one of the reasons that the Silva Method came to be is because he noticed clairvoyance in his children. They seemed to know what he was going to ask before he asked it, or they knew that a family member was going to come over unannounced before they arrived. And his theory is that children's brainwaves are more closely aligned with alpha waves than adults are. So children have the ability to tap into their creative side more easily. He describes situations where people lost something, and using the Silva Method, they felt compelled to go to a location and they would find it there. And it reminded me of something I talked about in my synesthesia video. I'm beginning to get a little convinced that the Silva Method is synesthesia. I sometimes forget why I entered a room, and I will feel this urge, like I'm being pulled into a certain direction, and I'll walk over there, and then I'll see the thing I was going to get, or I'll remember the thing I was going to do. Maybe the Silva Method and synesthesia are cousins. I forgive both of them. Now, he says that the police knocked his door and asked him if he could use his powers of clairvoyance to tell them who had committed a murder in the town. This took place in Texas, and I don't know what the police force are like in Texas, but in Scotland, the police would never. There is no chance that they would ask a clairvoyant to reveal the identity of a killer. It was very hard for me to suspend my disbelief for this. But I know practically nothing about Texas. I met a Texan boy once in Berlin at the same hostel as me. He was pretty out there. Hello Noah, if you see this. So anyway, Silva initially refused because he said that he doesn't use the Silva Method to trap anyone. Which, okay, but if you did use it, you'd be trapping a murderer. Surely. You might actually prevent further death, and that's a good thing, right? So basically, the police were persistent and gave Silva all the information that they had so that he could help them. So Silva decided to give this information to the higher powers in the creative realm and let them do what they needed to do.
Oh my God, can you let me do what I need to do?
And although the higher powers on the creative side did not reveal anything to Silva himself, 36 hours after he gave them the information, the murderer was caught by the police breaking into the building where the crime had been committed using the victim's key. And Silva is sure that this is the work of higher intelligence. And I'd agree, it was higher intelligence that caught the person who used the victim's key to return to the scene of the crime. My neighbours are up to something in the hall. They're making a lot of noise, aren't they, Tags? The final 3 days of the method are spent problem-solving arguments, healing parts of your body, and then establishing a hand signal so that you can access your deepened state of awareness anytime you do the hand movement. The hand movement is to bring your thumb and 2 fingers together, and at first I thought he meant this, and I was like, oh, this is a bit... But then I realised I actually think he meant this, which is much more of a meditation tradition and makes way more sense. So I have all the steps now and it's time to put them into practice. I have tried to start this already and it's so difficult to dedicate time in the morning, at noon and at night. And like I said before, I'm really struggling in the morning to not just fall back asleep. I've managed to do it sometimes, I just need to figure out how I make sure that I'm not late for work. And then at noon, this is absolutely fine if I'm working from home, but it's not fine if I'm in an office full of people. Nighttime is the easiest if I'm not coming home late drunk. Filmmakers like a drink. So I've had a few false starts and I really want to commit to it and do the full 20 days uninterrupted. But I'm going to do it and I'm going to come back with a part 2, which I think will be ready about a month from now. I need 20 days to do the Silva method and then I need time to reflect on it and record my video and edit my video and blah blah blah. And if you want to try the Silva method, then you can get the book for free on Kindle, or you can look at my cheat sheet and follow the steps with me. Maybe I'll be your counsellor. It's crazy, it's party. See you out there.